Hi. In this session, let's take a brief look at how to download the data for the financial modeling and valuation course that we have right now. So the idea is to just give you an idea about how do you get about where do you get the data from, especially about the financial statements of the company, and how do you pull it up from the PDF annual report to Excel. So let me quickly share my screen and we'll start with fetching the data. So we start with Mahindra and Mahindra. So I'm going on screener, Mahindra and Mahindra, and we are going to the documents area section. So within the document section, we have these annual reports, and they go all the way back. So you can download annual report of the last 10 years or whatever number of years for your company. Now, when we download the annual report, by default, your browser, especially if you're working on the Chrome browser, it will open the PDF file on the Chrome browser. Now, we don't want that. We want to download this file and open it in your Adobe, app PDF reader. The reason is that it becomes easier to download files from the PDF reader rather than directly from your Chrome browser. So what we are going to do is we are going to download this file. And in the meantime, while it is uploading, yeah. So this is so annual reports are generally heavy files, so it takes a bit of a time to load them. Nonetheless, now that we have this file, we can work on it. Now we already discussed in the classroom about the structure of the annual report. So you would already know by now that annual reports are typically designed and structured as a common structure. So there are certain sections in the annual report which are common, and yeah, so here they are. So in this case, we are seeing company overview, rise to create value, and so on. So there are a lot of corporate information, gyan about the company. And then we have statutory reports and financial statements. So within the statutory report section, we discussed management discussion and analysis, MD and A. So if I search for management discussion and analysis, okay, we should be able to reach to the section where there is management discussion and analysis. But the annual reports are big, so it may take some time in loading each of these individual sections. Anyways, whatever the case may be, we should be able to reach to that section. And in that section, they talk about what the management of the business wants to focus on, okay, from the business perspective. So okay, so statutory reports essentially start with the board's report. This is typically the first one. So board's report, and then the board of directors tells about the company, how many shares are there, what are different subsidiaries in the company, and so on. So this board report is essential if you want to understand the nature of your business, nature of the business of your company. You can go to the board report and start from there. And then from there, if you keep scrolling down, the board report ends, they talk about corporate governance report, and then finally move on to the management discussion and analysis. Okay, so yeah, so this is management discussion and analysis. I put the wrong ad essentially, but we reach here nonetheless. So after this management discussion analysis, you have a fair idea about your company. Okay, you have gone through the board report, you've gone through the MD&A, you have a fair idea about the company. Now let's move on to the financial statements. Now, for most companies that we are studying, you would have financial statements which are standalone and which are consolidated. Standalone financial statements, as we have already discussed in the previous, in the class as well as in the previous course. Standalone financial statements speak only of Mahindra and Mahindra as the parent entity. Okay, so it talks about the standalone statements of the company that we're talking about. Consolidation, however, includes all the subsidiaries and the so all the subsidiaries of the company essentially are also added in the consolidated statements. So for the purpose of our analysis, we will focus on the consolidated data for your company, whatever your company is. Now, now when you focus on here, obviously it all starts with the consolidated balance sheet and then the consolidated statement of profit and loss. Now, when we are getting this data from the annual report, we are so now comes a bit of PDF engineering, okay, Adobe PDF engineering. So when you select the data, it will select everything. Now when you copy and try and to paste it in Excel, the output will come out a bit messy, because when you paste this, it shows like this, and everything is in one cell. Okay, all of this is in this column number C. Okay, so the output is a bit messy. Plus, there are number of note number is also there. The data is also there. You don't know which year data are we talking about, and so on and so forth. So you'll have to do a lot of text to columns and those kind of stuff. In order to keep things easy, what we can alternatively do is just press Alt. Okay, so if you just press the Alt key on your keyboard, and if you go scroll down, you should be able to select this data, copy and paste it. Okay, now we have all this data. Okay, now after copying and pasting it, so now we can go to text to columns. चलो 2 मिनट रुक यार, आई एम रिकॉर्डिंग वीडियो, आई एम डूइंग अभी थोड़ा सा काम, थोड़ा सा वो चल रहा है। बोलो क्या हुआ। तुम एक काम करो, ब्रश करो, देन वील डू नाई नाई। ओके, अभी 2 मिनट बंद कर दे। या ओके सो sorry, there was a bit of a pause. Anyways, so now you can do text to columns, and similarly, you can take the data from the annual report, press the Alt key, and you get that specific data from the annual report. Okay. Now, there's a very specific, very clear reason why I want to take you to take data from the annual report, at least for this project. So that the idea is so that you familiarize yourself with the structure of the annual report. Okay, and if any kind of equity research will ultimately involve going into the notes and figuring out data from the annual report, so it would just make sense to do that, to get yourself familiarized right away. So this is from the perspective of the data. Next comes the quarter information. So this is the annual data. Now, where do you get the quarter data from? The quarter data is also available in the screener. So they made it quite easy. If you just go to quarters section, here we have the raw PDF. So you select on click on this, the most recent raw PDF, and it'll take you directly into the company filing, in this case BSE. And yeah, so here is the 23-page quarterly report for Mahindra and Mahindra. Now you can see there is consolidated segment and there is standalone. So we'll go to the consolidated. Now the thing about quarterly report is most of the companies will release limited information in their quarterly reports. Okay, so the information that is there in the quarterly reports will not be as detailed as it is in the annual report, which is why we go with what we have. Okay, so all the data providers, if you go to Money Control or Capital IQ or even Screener or any of these guys, they're ultimately copying and pasting data from here only. So whatever data is the company provides, they take and they publish. So we'll just going to work with the data that the company is providing, as simple as that. So we have the quarterly segment information for the quarter ended this is 30th June, and then 25, 30th June 24, and then 31st March 25. So this is your annual data. This is the quarter data for the most recent quarter. This is quarter data for the quarter which was 1 year ago. And and now when you want to calculate the LTM, last 12 months, you simply take the 31st March data, which we have already taken from the annual report, add up. Good. Now, please, I need some time. Sorry. So we take the year-end data, add up the most recent quarter, subtract the quarter 1 year ago to get the last 12 months, the LTM data. Okay. So you can take LTM data. Now let's just see what all data do we have. So this is the P&L data. Okay, basic P&L data that they have shared, segment revenue, segment results, and so on and so forth, segment liabilities, and yeah, statement standalone. So now this is standalone statement. Okay, and standalone segment information. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay, so as you can see, and this is the consolidated P&L. Okay, so we have the consolidated P&L, revenue, expenses, and profit, but we don't have the consolidated balance sheet. So if you notice, the company has not really given their consolidated balance sheet as of this particular quarter, in which case we just go ahead with the balance sheet of the year end itself. Okay. So we just assume that quarter on quarter there's not much difference in your assets and liabilities, which is why we can go ahead with when analyzing the balance sheet data, at least we can just go ahead with that. So which is why if you notice in the class, the LTM section, okay, last 12 months as of 30th of June and March 25 is exactly the same for Mahindra and Mahindra. Okay, this is the reason is in this case, what when I saw that the balance sheet is not there, I just took this as the LTM and then nothing else. In fact, LTM doesn't even apply for balance sheet because balance sheet is anyways as on one particular date. But having said that, since we don't have the balance sheet as on 30th of June, we'll just take the balance sheet as on 31st of March and we go ahead with that. In the income statement, we have to more specifically calculate the LTM. So we have the March data, we have the June 24 and June 25 quarters. This data is taken directly from the quarterly statement itself. So in order to calculate the LTM, all you need is one annual report and one quarterly report. Okay. The annual report will have the annual data, of course. The quarterly report will have both this year quarter and the same quarter last year. And then you can do plus minus to calculate the last 12 months. So this is about LTM. Next comes the idea of depreciation and amortization. So when you go to in order to calculate your capital expenditure and fixed asset schedule, so depreciation, amortization and impairment is typically in a note number 32 in this case, or alternatively you can go to the property, plant and equipment, which is a note number 4, okay, and capital work in progress note number 5. So you can go to this note and look at the depreciation in more detail here, or you can go to this note and look at the depreciation separately. So both options are available. If the company is giving a note on depreciation separately, then there's no problem. Then you can directly take it from here. However, if the company is not giving any note there, then you will have to enter into the property, plant and equipment note and take the data from there. Okay. So this would require a bit of familiarizing yourself with this data. Next comes the segment information. Now, because we are looking at consolidated statement by default will have segment information. So what we can do is we can go to in this case, I'm just searching for segment information. Alternatively, you can just search for segment. There is going to be a separate note for segment information. Okay, so in this case, note number 45. Now, segment note is typically at the end. Okay, so this note is typically at the bottom because I mean this is not a part of the balance sheet or P&L as such. So therefore, you'll find it separately. And over here, what the company is telling us is what are the different segments. So there are 4 segments, as you can see, A, B, C, D. And then the data for segments, whatever data company is giving. Now, this is important because we take what the company gives. Okay, so in this case, the company is giving revenue, automotive, farm, whatever the segments and their eliminations and the total revenue. Okay, and then so we have the revenue here. Then if we move forward, we have segment information continued. Okay, you have the depreciation, investment in associates, addition to non-current assets, and so on. Okay, so the company is giving, at least in this case, some more information. So segment assets, segment liabilities, okay, for all 4 segments and the total. Okay, so we have the segment assets, we have the segment liabilities, we have the segment depreciation, at least in this case, and we have the segment revenue. Okay, and of course the company is also, in at least in this case, giving geographical information, which is domestic and overseas. However, this is not of relevance to us as we speak, for at least for the purpose of this particular course and assignment. So this is a bit of on segment information. And finally, let's also take a look at the bond rating. This was important for the cost of debt. So for bond rating, again, as we discussed in the class, we go to the documents and we go to the ratings update. And we click on the most recent ratings update. So you can look at the most recent rating update, whatever it is, okay, whichever date that goes to. So the ratings update, in this case, it is ICRA, an affiliate of Moody's. So that's the ICRA's rating. And non-convertible debenture, you can typically look at the long-term bond or even the non-convertible debenture, which is also long-term. And then we look at the AAA and stable. So that's the rating. And using this rating, now we can assign a cost of debt to the company based on this rating and the default spread over and above the India 10-year bond. Okay, so this is the brief about how to fetch the data from the annual report for different parts, different areas, for different areas of annual report for the purpose of of valuing a company. I hope this session was useful, and thank you very much for listening.